Okay, joining us from Abuja to discuss the first year anniversary of the 8th Senate is Senator representing Osun East District, Babajide Omoworare. Good morning and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Yes, indeed, it was a stormy start for the National Assembly, especially the emergence of principal officers, the Senate President himself, and of course the Speaker of the House. Looking at the legislature in the last 1 year, what are those events, that come to mind for you? I'm not sure Senator Omoworare heard my question. Let me try to rephrase that as much as possible. Just give us an assessment of the legislature in the last 1 year, and how would you rate this 8th Assembly? Well, unfortunately, it seems Senator Omoworare still cannot hear us. Senator representing Osun East District right there in the National Assembly. Yes, we're trying to, do an assessment of the Senate, of the legislature, as a matter of fact, the National Assembly, how far so far in this last 1 year. Of course, like we said in our opening statement, and even Somna Sambo's report there, quite broad, looking at the stormy start of the National Assembly, how the Senate President emerged in the person of Senator Bukola Saraki and, of course, Dogara, who is House Speaker. It seemed the storm was over at a point, especially maybe for Dogara, but one might not say the same for Senate President Bukola Saraki, who is right now before the CCT answering to questions of corruption, in office.
Just before the budget, there was a bit of a lull there, but once the budget
was passed.
When it kicked in, the storm picked up to an extent. Then after that, you had the issue of the COT Act and the entourage of the Senate President to the Senate President's trial at the COT. So quite a number of events really that I think we should take a look at. And I think we have Senator Omoworare right now from Abuja. Hello, Senator. I'm sure you can hear us now. My colleague Ngozi asked you a question to score yourself. How would you rate the performance as it is of the 8th National Assembly?
Thank you very much. It's always difficult for you to rate yourself, but at the same time, I'll try my best. Senate did not hit the ground running, like we all know. When we resumed, we had issues. Unlike the 7th Senate that had smooth transition. However, we have tried our best in the past few months to ensure that we do pro-people legislations, and the process of making these acts is of course long. It's not like a decree that the military man just comes there and issues. It goes through first reading, second reading, we do public hearings, and we go through the third reading. We've passed a few bills. We've passed about 11 bills. This time last year, I think we had passed about 13 or 14, but we can do a lot better. A lot of our bills are at incubation stage at the several committees. But what we did was to actually have a legislative agenda. What do we really want to achieve in the next 3 years that will be in the 8th Senate? And we thought that our best bet is to sit down and have a legislative agenda. A legislative agenda covers a lot of issues, from security issues to infrastructure, to ensuring that there is opportunity for people to do business in a seamless manner in Nigeria. And we are working on that. I haven't said that. I think we still have a long way to go. And I think we have to make impact and I think there is room to make impact.
Okay, now some critics recently actually say that the National Assembly members are yet to come to terms with the reasons why, you know, the people have voted them into power, which is service. This 8th Assembly, are you really ready to serve the people? Would you say that is the mindset of the generality?
Based on the Constitution, Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution, you're mandated to make laws for the welfare and the well-being of the Nigerian people.
We are aware that we are voted for to make laws for the welfare of the people. If you go through Section 14 of the Constitution, the most important function of a legislator is to protect, of government generally, is to protect the well-being of the people, security and welfare of the people. And we're enjoined by Section 4 of the Constitution to also make laws for order and good governance of Nigeria. We are aware of that. But whether you like it or not, we don't have a choice. We're also politicians. Initially, when the Senate resumed, just like even in the House of Representatives, we had issues. Like I said the other time, those issues, I was opportune to be in the 7th Senate. We didn't have such issues. So we could really hit the ground running in the 7th Senate, which we did not. But I think we have really settled down, and I'm sure senators are aware that our primary function is the welfare of the people. Yes, the process of lawmaking may be long, and already I have 299 bills pending before my committee, the Rules and Business Committee. It's not possible for us to pass even the 299 bills. That is the whole essence of the legislative agenda, for us to have the ones that matter most first. Yes, along the line, you cannot deny senators that have bills that are not in tandem with the legislative agenda, but we also take them, and so on and so forth. So, to answer your question, we are aware of our role. We are aware of the fact that we are serving the people, and we are committed to doing just that.
All right. During, of course, and the trial is still on, of the Senate President, where you have entourage of senators follow the Senate President to the trial. People tend to evoke this section. You're meant to make laws for the Nigerian people. How does following the Senate President to some trial help the Nigerian masses?
Well, I didn't quite hear the last bit, but I know trial is going on at the CCT, Code of Conduct Tribunal. I am aware that there was an attempt to amend the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act and the ACJA, Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015. But as you all know, which was even has been reported this morning, it was withdrawn. It was stepped down by the Senate. Not only because the public opinion was against it, but also because as a Senate we take some decisions at executive session, and we met at executive session, the outcome of which at a sitting presided over by the Deputy Senate President, those two bills were stepped down. So, but the Senate President, as far as I'm concerned, and being a lawyer, is innocent until proven guilty. The senators are Nigerians. From my own personal perspective, anybody that wants to attend court, I think is free to attend court. We have 181 days within which to sit in a year, and as a senator, you have to attend at least 1/3 of the 181 days within which to sit in a year. If you don't sit for 1/3 of the 181 days, your seat will be declared vacant. So if you choose to go to court and you don't come for sitting, there are consequences. If you choose to come for sitting and also go to court, it's all well and good. I don't see anything wrong in anybody going to court they have the right to go to court.
Okay, at the expense of legislative business, but let me not take you up on that. Let's look at the issue of padding. Like you said, you were part of the 7th Assembly. And of course, the issue of attempts to amend the CCT Act. Many people read this to mean that the National Assembly is not really on the same page with President Buhari on the fight against corruption.
Answering the first bit of your question, let me say that senators cannot go to court at the expense of Nigerian people. If they go to court at the expense of Nigerian people, I've told you the consequence. Their seats will be declared vacant. But it's always a personal opinion whether you want to go to court or you don't want to go to court. I have said, for instance, speaking for myself, as one of the 109 senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I have not been to court once. I have not been to the Code of Conduct Tribunal once. And I have a right not to go. I have a right to go. So if you don't go to court, there are consequences. Your seat can be declared vacant. That is one. And secondly, looking at the other issue of not being in tandem or being in sync with the anti-corruption drive of President Muhammadu Buhari, I am of the view that to a large extent the Senate, as part of the legislative agenda, has stated that it wants to fight corruption. So just a few days ago, there was a motion on the issue of naivety that came up, and we will also look into that in the next few days, because we are still sitting for the next 2 weeks. So we will look into that, and I'm sure we'll be in a position to address the issue of corruption from that perspective. The Senate is an institution of 109 senators, and I personally agree with President Muhammadu Buhari's fight against corruption, and I will always support any measure, any move, any motion, any bill to fight corruption in Nigeria. And as the Chairman Rules and Business, it is my duty to ensure that any bill that comes before us to fight corruption should take the front burner.
Concerning the issue of padding, let me go back to that padding matter. You were part of the last assembly. Has padding always been the case before this time that we discovered under this administration that, you know, it wasn't going to be business as usual?
One of the bills I have pending before the Senate, which has been sent to the Committee on Establishment and also the Committee on Appropriation, is the bill to set up NABRO, the National Assembly Budget Research Office. The essence of setting it up is to ensure that there is no padding. Budget is a whole process on its own. I was in the 7th Senate, and if you read NABRO reports all the while, the moment a budget is brought to us, NABRO does its work. And NABRO has always identified cases of what we now call padding. I think it is now just called padding in a generic manner. But really, you have heads that are repeated, you have in the same budget, and you have issues that have been done before that requires a lot of expertise to determine, which is what NABRO has been doing. And I have proposed that NABRO should be given a legal fit. Just like there is budget office in the executive arm of government, there should also be a budget office in the legislative arm of government. So we will never support budget padding, and we have never supported it, and some of us have spoken against it. For instance, I personally spoke in the 7th Senate against the building of the Abuja City Gate, which was going to cost hundreds of millions. I also spoke against the building of the African Women Center, and it was removed from the budget of Abuja. I spoke, for instance, which is part of what I call budget padding now, the way we use it in the generic form.
All right.
About the fact that we had over 700 million budgeted for renovation of the State House Clinic. When in my own senatorial district, Obafemi Awolowo University had only over 300 million for capital projects, for overhead, for personnel, recurrent.
All right, Senator.
And this was adjusted. So some of us have been monitoring the budget, and whenever we discover that some things are in the budget that should not be there, we attack it frontally on the floor.
Okay.
So, which is what we are still doing. But I believe we will be assisted if the Senate passes. And if you check our legislative agenda, we have said that we will give legal seats to NABRO.
All right, Senator, let's look at the issue of your salaries and allowances. The law says you should get what you should get, but the reality on ground says otherwise. You know that probably in your state, as we speak, salaries are being owed workers and civil servants. Maybe just out of a moral obligation, do you think you want to reduce your salary and allowances? Okay, let some part of it go to the states and offset some of this outstanding salaries.
For instance, I've always said that it is the will of the people that will prevail. If the decision in Nigeria, irrespective of my own personal opinion, is that we should even have a unicameral National Assembly, so be it. There is advantage in having a unicameral and bicameral assembly. The issue of payment of salary, let me just clarify this. My state is owing just for 2 months. Yes, we've had to pay half salary. We have states in Nigeria that are even oil-producing states that are owing 6, 7, 8 months. Having said that, I am of the view that running democracy is quite expensive, just like the process is quite expensive. And a few bills have to be catered for. For instance, there used to be residential quarters for National Assembly members. When the issue of monetization came, it was sold, which is one of the reasons why legislators don't settle on time. When they get to Abuja, they have to, first of all, try and find accommodation, and so on and so forth. The issue has arisen, for instance, whether senators should use vehicles, official vehicles. And some of us have argued that, well, other agencies, other ministries, departments, and agencies also have vehicles they use that are in the order of protocol not as high as the senators, but if that is the wish of Nigerians, and we will save a lot of money if head of parastatal, even News Agency of Nigeria, and so on and so forth, and the universities and teaching hospitals don't use vehicles, official vehicles, we will save a lot of money to pump into the economy, to grow the economy. So if we have to reduce our salaries, so be it, to ensure that we pump a lot of money, a lot more money into the economy, to grow the economy, especially in the area of developing the micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. I have always been an apostle, and I know a lot of senators are also in tandem. We recently went through the second reading of the microfinance bank bill, which has been sponsored by Senator Matthew Rogide, and the essence is to ensure that we develop that sector so that money will cascade to the lowest level of the point of need.
Okay, let me come to one of the bills that the Senate actually threw out, the gender parity bill, gender equality bill. Why exactly was it, shut down? What were the fears of the members of the Senate that this bill was not allowed to actually even get to second or third reading, as it were?
My response will just be two. Number one, we as a parliament, we always have the challenge of explaining that if a bill passes through the second reading, it does not mean the bill has passed. The bill has just passed on for further legislative work at committee level, and that committee is likely to do public hearing. You just asked me about gender equality bill, and my position would have been that bill should ideally not have been killed. The bill should have passed, but that is my own personal opinion. The bill should have passed for further legislative work. Nigeria is quite heterogeneous. Different religion, different idiosyncrasies, different background, different culture, different tradition. And having served at a state parliament, I was opportune to spend 8 years in Lagos House of Assembly. I was majority leader, and I know that it's a lot different from playing politics at the federal level. You need to carry a lot of people along. If you have a bill, if you want to pass the PIB, for instance, and you don't have consensus of Nigerians, some people will not agree with 5% to be paid to host communities. So there has to be consensus building. There has to be give and take. If you want to pass gender equality bill and the culture and tradition and religion of maybe a geopolitical zone is of the effect, irrespective of what Beijing conference says, that a woman cannot apply for letters of administration. My mother did. My mother applied for letters of administration for my father's estate, which is the Succession Act applicable in the old Oyo state. I am from Osun State.
All right.
It is easier in some areas when it comes to statute of general application just coming from UK. But in other areas, it cannot just come hook, line, and sinker. We have to be sensitive. It's national politics. It involves a lot of things. So I think gender equality bill was good enough to pass the second reading. For there to be, I think what will have happened was that either it was put down.
All right. Senator Babajide Omoworare, we'll leave it at that, but we do hope that in another 365 days, we have a lot to celebrate, we have a lot to talk about, attributing to your efforts